Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla. Take large man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time has come, this is a cricketing emergency. Hear this call to arms for every cricket revolutionary. Take up your bats and stumps for the test match insurgency. At first they tried to silence us, but we would not be silenced. They threatened us with lies, so we threatened them with violence. Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Carol Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket. It's not about the winning, it's about how many rules you break. Even in cricket commentary, this is the best advice to take. Pick guerrilla cricket, it's the finest choice you'll ever make. There's so much more to cricket than red counters and a slice of cake. At first they tried to sanitize us and clean up our act, but people like it filthy, and we know that for a fact. Fidel Castro, Lenny Pascoe, Carlos the Jackal, Umar Akmal, Mahatma Gandhi, Grant and Andy, Brendan Behan, Austin Ian, guerrilla cricket. Stick with us, cause you know we're not the kind of thing that you see on the TV and the radio. So vive la revolution. First they tried to buy us, but we would not be bought. Okay, we were, but then we ran away, and we will not be caught. Would not give up the ghost when they left us all for dead. They decapitated us, but we just grew another head. Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Carol Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket.
Do not go gently into the good night. Rage, rage against the menace of bad light. Surely what Dylan Thomas would have written had he been observing the first 2 days of this test. As if thunderstorms are not enough, we're barely through the first innings of this test. We reach the third day. Is cricket shooting itself in the foot again? Good morning, good afternoon, good dawn, good dusk, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Guerrilla Cricket. I'm Gorilla Hendo, Nigel Henderson, and I am angry. I am very, very, very angry that we're getting no cricket again because seemingly bad light. Well, it must be bad light because they've been running around on the outfield despite the fact that the covers are across the square. What on earth is going on out there? We should, of course, talk about Mohammad Rizwan, who batted really well to keep Pakistan going towards the end of the day. And we will be looking at some statistics related to that shortly from our friends at Total Cricket Analysis. That's another little feature that we've got ready for you, and Tony will be bringing us up to date on that. But let's talk in the company of Tony the Bishop and Nigel Walker about this bad light conundrum. Do we not owe it to the paying public? I know they're not paying literally by going into the ground, but they are paying to watch Sky or whatever, or even listen to us. They may be donating to Patreon. Do we not owe it to the paying public when you've got floodlights to play through almost anything?
Well, the irony yesterday, Hendo, was that literally next to, on the nursery ground next to the Rose Bowl, basically part of the Rose Bowl, the Pakistan T20 squad were playing a full-scale practice game. chucking
Well,
the ball
they can
down
argue
at
that-
80 or 90 miles an hour at each other without a problem.
Yes, they were.
Well,
and
they,
apparently
but they had
were-
a white ball, presumably. But this is not.
They did.
I don't agree with this point. You see, people say that you can't. I mean, why did we introduce this notion that having decided we could use the floodlights to aid us in bad light, and in fact that has helped us see a lot more cricket than we would have probably have seen in previous years. Why have we got this ridiculous approach of when the natural light is superseded by the fake light, we have to come off? I don't understand this, and it can't be about the ball, because if you look at white ball cricket, most white ball cricket, or the majority of white ball cricket, is played in daylight. Despite it being day-night, it is played in daylight. And if you get a slightly cloudy day, or that sort of white cloud that you get covering the whole of the horizon, as it were, you can never see a white ball when it goes up in the air. I've been at matches at the Oval where the ball has disappeared into the air, someone's trying to get underneath it, and you cannot see it falling out of the sky. So, to my mind, having a red ball under unnatural light shouldn't be a problem. Does anyone agree with me, or can you shoot me down?
I read an article this morning. I thought this is going to be talked about, and the article headline, it was in the Guardian obviously, and it was Jimmy Anderson thinks that there should be more flexibility in bad light over the course of a test. And it was interesting because Jimmy trotted out with all the usual bowlers lines, it's like, well, I want to bowl and all this kind of stuff, and the light wasn't that bad, and But interestingly, Broad, on the other hand, who you'd think would agree with Jimmy, was completely the opposite. He was like, the mention of the pink ball being swapped out if it gets too dark, and you find a similarly aged pink ball, and you start playing with that. And he was saying, well, that would be totally unfair on a batsman, because obviously the pink ball under lights for some reason does extraordinary things. And he said that most of the fielders on the England side, the batsmen, were like, well, I wouldn't want to bat in this. So obviously it was quite dark, and that was the feeling amongst the batsmen. So it's difficult to know which side to take. I mean, we'd like to see more cricket, and as you say, that game was going on, but rightly so, with a white ball. But there were no lights out there either. But then there probably wasn't any stands.
But a penny for the thought to Joe
light.
Root on that one, Joe, because I have a sneaky feeling if you'd have said to Joe Root, I'll tell you what, Joe, you can go and send Sibley and Burns out for 5 or 6 overs tonight in overcast conditions, lights on, heavy cloud cover, and see how they get on a ball that's swinging and seaming all over the shot. Or you can wait until tomorrow morning. Which would you rather have? And I suspect I know the answer.
You're absolutely right about that. But I think it was one of those weird situations where nobody really wanted to go off at that point. Once the final wicket had been taken, it might have been different, because once England had got out there and realised that they had to bat in those conditions, they would have had a different view of it, I'm sure. But this is the whole point about the umpires having the final say on this, isn't it? If they'd offered that to the batsman, I'm pretty sure the batsman would have stayed out, on the basis that they wanted at least to start against England in those conditions. The last thing they wanted was to then bat on this morning, in case the sun came out, for England to have their innings in reasonably good conditions. As it happens, the conditions are not much better this morning. In fact, there's been drizzle around, as far as we understand it. So that may render that pointless in one sense. But I just can't believe this notion of always saying, well, we need the white ball. Why do we need the white ball? The red ball can be seen.
I'm with you.
The point about the white ball out of a sort of fairly grey sky can be very difficult to pick up. And so I don't understand why this is always the point that is made. Oh, we need the white ball, and then we have to have the black sight screens, blah, blah, blah. It's a load of nonsense. They need to get out there. They need to get it all together. They're the only thing keeping us from deep depression in these times. So I think they deserve, they owe it to us to be out there, as much as being in their bubble.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you get to see a side, 223 for 9, having innings spanning into the third day? That's quite interesting in its own right.
Well, yes.
Well, it's definitely true, I think. Pakistan have done extremely well to survive. What have they survived? 86 overs now, is it?
Yep, something like that.
Recollection. I mean, the fact is, the lights were on right from the start. So to survive, effectively into day 3, admittedly with stoppages. I mean, with the lights on, they tend to be on when the conditions are more favourable, and it just exacerbates the advantage to swing and seam bowlers. So to have survived 86 overs and have got to 223 for 9, I think Pakistan have done pretty well, to be honest. And I've got a bit of a sneaky, nasty feeling. Sorry, Bear. I don't think England are going to find it easy at all today, assuming we ever get out there.
Well, no, I think you're right. I think 250 is a good score, and therefore England kind of let it go away from 170 odd, didn't they, for 6 or 7.
I mean, you kind of accept the fact that you're going to get breaks for bad light, and we've always accepted this in cricket. But when it gets to the point where you might lose a whole day for bad light, that's surely unacceptable. I mean, unless it's literally biblical, I don't know, the 4 horsemen are coming from the pavilion end. I don't see that there's really a problem.
With what?
No,
just playing? No, I don't.
Hey.
Well, I mean, I think there's still. I mean, the thing is, I mean, if it's it looks like the weather's going to be kind of like this for the entire test. So,
Yes.
Both sides are going to struggle to bat. So therefore, there is still a chance of a result, even with limited play. I mean, if you get 160 overs in, which is only 2 days over the next 3, it's not even that, is it? I think you could get a result, possibly even.
Well, I mean, we have seen. I mean, when you've got conditions like this, and the wickets tend to fall quite readily and quite regularly, you don't need those 5 days. I mean, I always argue that you do need the 5 days because things will,
like
if
this.
you have that. If you have that time, then you play in a slightly different way. But yeah, I just don't understand it really. I mean, it's dark, but it's no darker presumably than it was when they came off yesterday. It's no darker.
What now?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it now, it's quite dark, but it's playable, isn't it? Are you saying that you can't see a red ball?
No, there's rain.
Well, I know. All right, okay. Apart from the rain, apart from the bloody rain. No, it's a fair point. It is drizzling, which is the most annoying form of rain ever invented by the cricket gods, because it doesn't blow over quickly and it just doesn't give you a downpour that can be mopped up. It's just there all day being drizzly. Anyway, let's talk about other things apart from bad light. Let's talk about how England bowled to the tail. There was some talk about this. They tended to put the field back for Mohammad Rizwan, a man who'd been scratching around for a while, and then as soon as we got down to the 8th, 9th wickets, England decided that we needed to give him a single, and he quite happily took those things. He quite happily picked up a couple of 2s and the odd boundary here and there, and ended up being 60 not out. Now, we've been doing some statistical analysis. Well, I say we. Jack Groom from Total Cricket Analysis, who have a fantastic website. You go and have a look at that, totalcricketanalysis.com, has done an article for us talking about how various teams bowled to the tail and how England bowled to the tail specifically. And Tony's going to take you through some of that. He's going to put his mathematician's brain.
Lord.
Yeah, I know it's difficult. He's going to put it into that capacious head, and he is going to interpret what Jack has told us.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, Hendo.
That's
that
right.
Wonderfully thrown hospital pass.
Indeed.
Well, first of all, remember England yesterday had Pakistan 120 for 5, and then 136 for 6. They're now 223 for 9. So that did prompt us to ask our statistical friends, well, actually, how well do England bat at numbers sort of 7 to 11? How do they fare against other countries? Because 68 runs in difficult conditions seemed quite a lot, and it felt like England had their foot on the throat of Pakistan at that 120 for 5 and rather released it. And that did in fact tend to be so. In fact, if you look at the last 10 years, England average 71.64 bowling at numbers 7 to 11, which puts them effectively 3rd worst against all other test playing countries who have played consistently across that 10-year period. Zimbabwe 77 for 1, India 72.27, rather surprisingly, were worse. The best, interestingly enough, were South Africa at 60.65 and Bangladesh at 64.25. So the feeling we had that were England letting Pakistan off the hook and were they doing something wrong in the process, was rather borne out by the fact that they've actually quite consistently let sides off the hook a wee bit. We also looked, and those stats actually also bear true when you look at just a first innings, where England actually averaged 78 bowling against numbers 7 to 11, 78.39, and only Zimbabwe and India are worse there as well. So that was kind of interesting. But, and Hendo alluded to this, you have to take into account some of the tactics, I think, that England then deployed. Now, all morning they'd been bowling quite magnificently, and especially in that spell just after lunch, where the ball was moving off pitch and in the air. So they'd been bowling full, they'd been bowling straight, they'd been attacking the stumps, and it was bearing fruit. As soon as it got to the point where they had Rizwan and whoever it was in the tail batting next to them, I know Mohammed Abbas kept him company for a while, they changed their tactics. They had 5 men back on the boundary, but they then made it more. Stuart Broad, when he started to bowl the new ball, he had 5 men on the boundary, and they were basically going into more defensive mode to encourage the single to be taken to try and get to bowl at the non-striking batsman, and they became to a certain extent so obsessed with that they forgot the basic rule of what had worked before, which was attack the stumps, let the ball do the work. It's going to swing and it's going to seam for you. So a bit of an obsession had taken root. No pun intended. No pun intended. A bit of an obsession had taken root with managing the game differently when you had the experienced player well set with the new batsman. And ask yourself, if it had been Babar Azam batting with Rizwan, what would you have done? You'd have had, and the ball that's new, what would you do? You'd have 4 or 5 slips in place and you'd attack, wouldn't you? And yet
you
they
would think so,
completely
yeah.
changed that. So there is a bit of a trend for England to try and get a little bit funky and look at ways to manage the established proper batsman, as it were, with the tail ender, and it doesn't always work, and it does sometimes cost them runs.
I think this was borne out yesterday. It really did. I mean, even Stuart Broad went on record as saying the ball was moving too much at one point. I've seen this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can argue that. Bear has a point to make.
Well, no, I was going to say I take in mind all this and every point you said, and it was basically you said exactly what they said on Sky as well, and everyone thinks that, right? And this is true. But for me, I was watching it at home yesterday, and there was a point where exactly that. I think Shaheen came in, and then Wokes was bowling. I think it was Wokes bowling, and he was bowling his normal line, and it was zipping away, and Rizwan was fencing. And then the last ball of the over, or the 5th ball of the over, he just took 2 steps down the track, smashed it back over Wokes' head, and it was like there was a change in his attitude at this point. Maybe it was after Shaheen got out, actually.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely. Yeah.
And he's decided, right now I'm going for it, right? And that kind of plays a bit into how the bowlers think, because suddenly the length ball that he was just fencing at and was beating his outside edge, now he's saying to you, right, I'm going to take that on. And then Broad got shoved over the top of the slips with a very intentional shot. And so you have to take in, it'd be interesting to see how this analysis worked for sort of 7 and 8, or 7, 8 and 9, no, 7 and 8, and then 9 and 10. And I bet there'd be a difference there as well. Because when they're playing with 7 and 8, they're a little bit more constrained, because they can probably bat a little bit, and they think, right, we'll try and get as many runs as we can. There comes a point where the batsman who's in, his brain flips and goes, right, these 2 are bunnies. They A, can't take the strike, and B, I've got to get as many runs as I can on the board at a certain time. So I'm going to take chances against the bowler. And that puts the bowler off. Then he thinks, shit, I can't bowl a length ball, because he's just going to go through the arc and carve me over there.
Yeah, I take that, but I think that comes pretty late in the day. That, to me, really only came either with the run out of Shaheen or the LBW of Mohammed Abbas. I don't think before that point that Mohammed Rizwan had been going for big shots. He did go for a few big shots after that, but at that point it was entrenched in England's approach that they were going to allow him the single. And the point about that is that yes, he played well and he was gutsy and he battled it out, but he's not a brilliant player, and the ball was doing enough to get a player of his quality out. We'd seen good balls get the likes of Babar Azam and other people caught in the slips. So
Barbara Azam, I think, is a very
but also you've got to think
point.
the strategy isn't to give him a single; it's to stop him getting a 4 off the first 4 balls of the over. So
no, the strategy is to get at the other
precisely. So you don't want to give him a 4 because then the runs flow away. So you don't. Cut
but
the
they
single.
weren't giving him a 4s. They weren't.
No, precisely. They were cutting off the 2s. So
no, but I don't think at that point that he had started hitting out. He really hadn't. That came quite late on in his innings, I would say. I would argue.
Yeah.
I mean we do probably need stats to get to actually clarify that. But that's certainly the way I saw it yesterday.
Well, I saw it as they were trying to cut off. I think it's a similar thing, and it results in the same. But I saw it as them trying to, basically, if he tried to manufacture a shot square or whatever, he wouldn't get 4, and he wasn't prepared to take the single. So therefore, they're stopping the 4, and until a certain point in the over, he wasn't going to take the single. They scrambled a couple of 2s, and they also went for a couple of 2s that weren't 2s. And Mohammed Abbas had to face 5 balls of 1 over, and everyone thought, oh. And then there was a big appeal for OW by Broad, which was just clipping leg and wasn't given out. You've seen it happen so often.
If you're a boxer and you get punched twice, do you just immediately go back on the ropes and allow yourself to be hit, or do you punch back? And to a certain extent, I think all we're saying is, because the batting team will go into swinging mode with nothing to lose, the fact is they will also likely leave themselves more open to the counter punch. And we were denying ourselves, England were denying themselves to a certain extent, the ability to deliver that counter punch.
You're also looking at an England team that's got opening bowlers who've got something like 1,100 wickets between them.
Well, and very adept at bowling at the tail, by the way.
And you're saying that they went on the defensive immediately. They think he's about to go over the top for a 4. Wouldn't they back themselves to get Mohammed Rizwan out?
Well,
surely
you'd have
the
thought
2 best
so.
bowlers that England have got at the moment, with 1,100 wickets between them, and then immediately go on the defensive. And I'm not even sure that it was immediately that they went on the defensive.
But that's also part of the bowler's mindset. The bowler goes, if he swipes 3 lucky 4s, the bowler's really upset. He doesn't want those 3 lucky 4s going away. So he's going, look, the guy's going to swing, right, and it's more likely to go there, and there. I don't want those being 4s, and he won't take a single. So I'd rather have those people out. That'd be me as a bowler. There's nothing worse than you go for 12 off and over for 2 lucky edges over the slips, some skewed thing down behind square on a leg side or something. You just get pissed off, and as you say, rightly say, this wicket 250 might be a reasonable score. So you don't want that sudden. I mean, look, Yasir Shah scored 29 runs in 4 overs last Sunday morning. We thought, shit, that's the 29 runs that could do it. And so sometimes the runs become valuable in their own right. I mean, England wanted to get them out under 200, and they just didn't get enough. As I said, you see it so often. Even the tide tries to cut off the single, or gives the 4, or stops the 4 because they're not going to take the single for the first few balls of the over. Then they bring everyone in, they try and stop the single, and a decent batsman who's in will still manage to find a space if the other guy's on it. Unless you're hitting it straight to the fielder, there's a good chance you'll get through for that single. So there's almost always a single there. It's a difficult one. It is a difficult one to try and get at the weaker batsman. But you're right. You should be trying to get the other guy out too.
Yeah. I think we've seen. Go on, Tony.
Oh no, all right. I was just saying that I think overall that if something continues to work and you suddenly stop doing it, you're handing, to a certain extent, the initiative to the opposition, when you should probably look to do more of keeping going. And I think asking the question, what if Rizwan was batting with Babar Azam rather than Naseem Shah? You'd go.
You'd be giving Babar Azam the single.
Yeah, they'd be attacking the stumps and looking to take wickets. So why change? I understand everything Bear is saying, and he's absolutely not wrong. I think the stats rather more support the fact that it's probably best to continue what works than to completely change your game to accommodate the mix of the tail ender and the established batter.
England aren't the only side to do this, but in my watching years, we do seem to do it particularly badly. Is that just me being pessimistic, or is that
the stats say
is that fair?
third worst?
Yeah, the stats say third worst in terms of number of runs. I mean, that we can't say that those runs came in a particular fashion, can we? All we can see is the bare statistics. We can't say that was because England decided to go on the defensive and allow the.
What you can look at though, Hendu, I mean, you can look at the averages of the bowlers that England have got currently in their attack against that numbers 7 to 11, and actually they're not half bad. You know, Wokes at 9.69, Anderson at 11.41, Broad at 13.7. Those three, interestingly enough, considerably better than the two more rookie bowlers, Curran at 21.15 and Bess at 18.15. So I think you had, you had the right skills, but not necessarily the right tactics. And probably, and Stuart Broad, I think, pretty much said as much. You know, he says we're very happy with where we are. Teams tend to score more in the second innings than the first at the Rose Bowl. Remember, there's only 4 completed tests played there, but I'll take his word for that. I haven't double checked him, but it probably sounds plausible. Nonetheless, he did say he felt that they could have got Pakistan out for less. They're not all out yet, remember.
No, indeed, that's the point. Okay, well, what we should say to people is that if you want to read more about that and get more deeply into it, you'll be able to read the article on our website. Is it up yet, Bear, or will it be up very shortly?
You know what? If you just hang on for 2 seconds, I am making it historically. I'm making it live right now. Now it's live. There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't I read some tweets while you do that, Bear?
It's
Absolutely.
done.
We are
It's done,
joined with a
Tony.
lot
It's
of
done.
folks.
As you say, I'm a genius. It only takes a second.
Did I say that, Hendu, or did you say that? I don't recall saying that, do you?
Yeah, no, well, exactly. You know what the
Very
Bear's like.
bizarre. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll do some tweets, but also just to remember, we'll tweet out the link to that piece as well. So hopefully you'll go along to the website. And thanks to Jack at Total Cricket Analysis for working on those figures for us.
It was indeed, certainly got us talking. Okay, yes, a number of you are with us and we're delighted to have your company. Jay Grover, morning all, happy Indian Independence Day. Muttley morning primates, why can't they use the floodlights if day-night tests are now a thing? Love and sausages. That's a conversation we've just been having before we got onto the thorny subject of bowling at the tail. Pirate Badshar Adrift says, your bad light is a benefit solely for the batsman and hence is related to the old gentleman batsman professional bowler dichotomy. Do any of you seriously believe bad light would be a thing if it hampered the working class bowlers? I think we did say that. We did also say that, you know, Joe Root would have not been at all unhappy with protecting his opening batsman. For what it's worth, I think they're going to have a jolly tough time today, but that's assuming they ever get out there. Let's wait and see. Colt 1954 says, or an orange ball, but I'm sure they use that. Hendo Bear, can you recall an orange ball has been used?
I think they did experiment with an orange ball. I'm not sure it was any in a first class match of any sort. This is the argument. A lot of us who've played indoor cricket or go to nets know that we've often used hard yellow balls. They're not actually genuine cricket balls. And if I remember rightly, there's been all sorts of problems. I'm sure that's been looked into, the yellow ball, which is why we ended up ultimately with the white ball. But I'm pretty sure the yellow ball has been looked at. Experimentally and under certain conditions.
And due to the weird things that pink balls do under lights, I mean, they seem to be very advantageous to the bowler. But for some reason.
Yes. Jay Grover says, stop fighting, you're tearing me apart. I'm not sure we were fighting. We were having a healthy family discussion.
We were having a considered debate.
No worse than most families would have over their Sunday lunch.
Indeed.
Flash Score Cricket says, holding on to tradition can sometimes be wonderful, but it can sometimes be akin to clinging to a sinking ship. Some of us believe the pink ball, and maybe even coloured clothing, is key to the future of Test cricket as a viable product.
Now you're getting into really interesting territory. I mean, if there was never cricket played in whites again, I think I would go to my grave a very unhappy man.
Yeah.
It's part of the aesthetic, isn't it, of Test cricket? The whites.
What do they wear for day-night at the moment? I literally can't remember. Yeah, they play white even in day-night, but with a pink ball.
Oh, with a pink ball, yeah. Sorry, I see what you mean.
Pink ball, but white clothing.
Yeah. I would be very resistant to the idea of having coloured clothing in Test cricket. The pink ball is.
Well, I wouldn't mind so much if it was a flat colour. If it was anything like the fucking pyjamas in one-day cricket, I'd get very upset. But I mean, if it was like exactly like this, but I don't know, blue, but it was all blue without any flares and any little design things, it was just blue, I could probably maybe get down with that.
No. You're into sort of your Marks and Sparks pyjamas rather than your funky Paul Smiths, are you there, Bear?
Yeah, absolutely. I want check shirts. That's the only thing that I will.
Then you can have any colour ball, though, Henry.
Well, Flash Score, slowly. Maybe I think our friend Flash Score is thinking perhaps more that things should move faster. I mean, remember there was a right old hoo-ha about numbers on shirts, for goodness sake. Which, as someone who spends a lot of his time talking to other people about cricket whilst watching the telly and to do it, I actually find quite an asset, and I never ever had any kind of issue with, and go back 40 years, if DCS Compton had been running to the boundary with a number 9 on his back, I don't think he'd have been any less a player, and would have been easy to identify from across the other side of the ground. So that's certainly an innovation I have no problem with.
Well, I have no problem with that at all. And in fact, the slightly irritating thing about that is that, of course, if you get reasonably inclement weather for test matches like we've had in this test, and certainly up at Old Trafford, where despite the fact that the south was having a heat wave, it was apparently quite cold. They then put on the old sleeveless jumpers and the long sleeve jumpers, and they don't have names on numbers on the back. And I can understand. I can almost hear Rog McCann, Rog Pineapple, sort of getting very excited in a bad way about this, but. If you're going to have numbers on the back of shirts, don't you need to have numbers on the back of sweaters as well?
They do as well, don't they? In one-day cricket, if they have
very hard to knit a number into.
Well, I suppose that's true. I mean, is there any way of getting around that? Does anyone know anything about fashion and materials?
It's all printed now, anyway, isn't it?
How easy that would be? I don't know.
You can put training bibs on, or the equivalent thereof.
Training.
My point is, Tone, in a one-day game, they have names and numbers on the back of their one-day jumpers.
They do, and it fundamentally doesn't really affect the problem.
But are they? I'm not sure they're the cable knit classics, are they? Those jumpers?
No, but I'm sure they can get around that problem. There's enough people who make clothes in the world,
There are a lot of people who make clothes in the world. That's a very good point, Bear.
And they have machines, and they can probably program it to stitch that in very easily. Be my bet. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Bear. Quite right. You're always right, Bear. Not denying it. Leah is with us. Hello, good morning to you. Lovely to have you with us, of course. Morning all. George DeBell reports that Anderson and Broad can't even be bothered to stay in the ground and seem to be heading back to the hotel. I think that suggests they're thinking of
nothing before
a massage or a spa, or not much before lunch. Jay Grover says lock Sofa Katie in a room full of mescaline and crack and let her rip on the designs. Problem sorted. There's an interesting thought. Let me see as well if there are any people with us on Crick Tracker.
The other thing is we watch highlights of the first morning on the TV. We dropped 2 fucking catches and they got to 80 for 1, didn't
that was in the first morning, wasn't it? That was the first day.
I mean, that's cost us 60 runs. Possibly.
Actually, there are. I'm sorry, Bear. There's an awful lot of people with us on Crick Tracker who appear to be quite happy to watch 3 grumpy old bastards having an argument, basically. But they were delighted they're with us. Surendra Gosha, Soya Anun, Haida Mughal. Let's see, the same. Mudasir bin Muzaffar. Paris Sani, Happy Independence Day to you. Who says Happy Independence Day to people? Malik. So good they named him 3 times. Mansour Khan, Javed Iqbal, Wazim Watu, Aniat Tullah, and Sajat Baloch, amongst a number. I just picked out a few there. But
do you think our Indian
we
friends
are thrilled
laugh?
To have your company? What's that, Bear?
I was saying, do you think our Indian friends laugh at our attempts to say their names?
I would have absolutely
we apologise.
No doubt that they don't, and there's also, I suspect, a lot of Pakistan names there, by the way.
True.
Bear, but
absolutely.
Yes. However, if I was a stranger in someone else's country, I would. I'd like to think they'd appreciate my efforts.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Hendo, you had your hand up.
Rather than not trying at all. Andrew Wright is with us on our own channel, and it says, afternoon all from Dhaka. I love the English summer. Bloody rain, bad light. Oh well. Welcome to you, Andrew. Hendo, you were
Yeah, no, just a point. Just a point that Knuckles made from the green room regarding getting numbers on jumpers as opposed to just shirts. Says if you can knit a board and sponsors logo onto a jumper, why not a name and number? Which is a very good point. Yes, indeed. We always manage to get these sponsors logos wherever they must be, and so that is a very good point to make. It's down to will, isn't it? It's down to will as much as anything. Not Will. That bloke.
Well, actually, one person. I mean, to knit every jumper in the world. That's hard.
Yeah,
work.
Will. No, Will needs to get a bit of a move on, doesn't he?
He does. Knit one, pearl one, and come out. Poor old Will.
Poor old Will.
Can we talk about something else? I've got something else that I've spotted, and I think a number of people have. I don't know if we talked about it yesterday. How Barbara Azam, who of course is statistically I think in the test this year is just magnificent in terms of his numbers.
Yeah.
Well, how he's adapted to the conditions. One of his most frequent scoring strokes, generally career-wise. Remember, he's only ever played one test before in this country, and I think he was 68 not out before. Stokes broke his wrist at Lords, I think. He more or less put away the cover drive, which is one of his signature strokes. And was quite happy to realise that with a ball that's moving across him, which does ultimately tend to account for him, that was the one to sort of put on the shelf. And in shades of Virat Kohli, who I think last time he was here did very much that when he was coping with English conditions. And it may not be as pretty, but the nurdle off the hips got him a lot of runs yesterday. And what also was interesting is that the run rate during the series in this summer has been really low. Generally, West Indies and England. I'm just trying to see if I can have that number to hand. Oh yeah, 3.12 and over. It's the lowest in any English Test season since 2000.
Yeah, and I think that's because the conditions that they bowled in. I mean, they've been very conducive to movement, really. And batsmen are realising that if they want to be able to say that they are amongst the greats of the day, irrespective if they become greats of all time, the greats of the day, that they have to be disciplined in their shot selection. Absolutely true. I mean, the fact of the matter is that probably when the ball is swinging the amount that it has been outside the off stump, you are going to get a lot of opportunities to drive, and the chances are that you will put 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 of them away for 4 or a couple or something like that. But the fact remains that probably you are going to misjudge one of those and you will get an edge. I think that when it's swinging as constantly as it has been doing, I think we go back in England to years behind us, and we are aware of the fact the ball swings when the ball is new. But I think over the last few years, certainly when we were playing India as well, and probably Australia last year, because we're playing much more under lights when the light isn't that great, we are seeing the ball swing more consistently for longer.
Yep.
Means that the players like Babar Azam might have been coming in after 2 or 3 wickets have gone down, but most of the shine is off the ball, perhaps. The bowlers are a little bit more tired, and the consistency of swing wouldn't normally be there, so they would be able to make good in those situations. But I think they're having to adjust now because we are seeing the ball swing for much longer.
Absolutely right, and his ability to adapt, a la Virat Kohli, I thought was particularly interesting. Something else that I think is interesting, and then we must do some more tweets because people are joining us and seem to be actually enjoying our conversation, which is wonderful.
God, what's wrong with them?
No, absolutely. 3 centuries so far in the cricket this summer. All, in fact, have been quite painstakingly slow. Sibley, Ben Stokes, actually the slowest of his 10 centuries for England.
Yep.
And Shan Masood have all been deliberate, watchful, painfully constructed, because the conditions have demanded that they be so. So yes, I mean only 2 of those are England, and yes, England's under Silverwood have got a particular philosophy about really putting a premium price on your wicket. But it is definitely true that runs have been scored actually at a slower rate than they have done for 10 years in tests in this country. So my question is, which I'm sure I hope people will answer, is has that meant cricket has been less entertaining in any way, and my definite point of view on that would be absolutely not. It has been at no expense to the product, the excitement, the closeness of the finishes at all, that the runs have come at a slower rate given the context of the games and the conditions that they've been played in.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear what people think.
That's interesting. I mean, we've looked back during this series when we've been talking to Ninja and various other people. We go back to that test in 1971 that India won at the Oval, and they got there by scoring 173 to win, I think it was, in 101 overs. And now that sounds desperately boring, but I'm guessing it probably wasn't, because it was so tense. And so low scores do not necessarily mean, and slow scores do not necessarily mean uninteresting cricket at all.
No, indeed. Well, let me catch up with some more tweets.
Yep.
Nimesh Dubey is having a conversation with Jack Russell, North Stand, Wankaday Gang, and ourselves. Talking about Jack Russell. Not many people know that in the 1995 test in Joburg, where Atherton scored the marathon 185 not out, Russell shared the Man of the Match award for his match-saving stand with Atherton and a world record 11 dismissals. Yes, indeed he did. Jay Grover said, Tony, crank not crack, sort your drugs out. Also, I laugh at your pronunciations, full stop. I will take that on fully on the chin. I realise they're not knuckles, rather flourishy. I'm not quite sure how to describe Knuckles' pronunciation.
Is crank what really miserable old men take?
There's a film called Crank, starring Jason Statham.
Oh God, I hate Jason Statham. I know that Men with Ven will get onto me about that because he absolutely loves him.
Speaks highly of you.
And
if I see a film and it says Jason Statham underneath it, I immediately turn to the next film.
It's quite funny. The whole premise of the film is that someone's given him some deadly toxin that keeps his basically going to stop his heart unless he takes loads of drugs and keeps his adrenaline really high. So it's a stupid film, but it's quite entertaining.
Okay, if you say so.
Okay, hold on. I was just replying. I'll cancel my reply and say it out loud. Hold on. Diana Patterson says, I am happy enough to listen to three grumpy old men, especially as the county games are in trouble. Yeah, I think you're right, sadly, today, Diana. I would listen to Warwickshire, but the sound is creaking and skipping. What causes that, Bear? Hendo's mic does that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that's just my bones. That's my bones.
What platform is it on?
I'm getting up.
What are you listening on, Diana? Let us know, and we'll have.
You can always switch.
Department.
Go to the website. You can try tune in. Does tend to do a little bit of skippy stuff.
Maybe that's a new way to make money, Hendo.
What,
we'll just hire the Bear out as technical consultant. Dial 1-800-BEAR.
Yeah.
Just to hear him go, you fucking muppet, turn it off and on again.
Yeah, well, exactly. As a man who
for a tenner a time.
A man who helped out the ICC. I mean, they owe us, don't they? Really, for the World Cup last year. Absolutely. He is the consultant. We can.
Leah.
Okay.
I'm not paying you. If anyone consults me, I'm keeping all the cash, man.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be where you are without us. You wouldn't be where you are without us.
Right, I'm going on strike. Let's see how you all do. I might have to lock Michael out now.
Leah. I've said that 3 times now for a reason. Leah.
Yep.
Says, well, I regularly have a giggle at some of your attempts to pronounce my name, and mine's not even Indian. Somebody yesterday, I can't remember who it was, kept calling you Lee for a while, and then changed to Leah. I can't remember who that was. Do I get your name wrong, Leah? And if it's not Leah, what is it? But you're going to have to let me know. Farong says, great idea. Numbers on sweaters and vests. We'll take out a lease and start the manufacturing process. Oh, brilliant, Farong. Thank you. We'll negotiate terms for the intellectual property rights on that one. Could be a nice little earner for Bangladesh. Yeah. But will the BCCI approve? Yeah. Well, everything has to go through there. Jay Grover says, totally agree with Tony because he is wise. What did I say?
God knows.
What particular thing?
That must be from years ago. That must be from years ago.
What particular thing did I say when I was wise? Like an old owl.
I suppose ultimately, if you keep talking, eventually you'll say something wise, Tony.
Well, it's the monkeys ending up with the and 100 typewriters and ultimately getting to the complete works of Shakespeare, isn't it? It might take a while to get there. Nimesh Dubey says, and Jack Russell was the lord and master of the leaving the ball technique while batting. Such flourishes. Yeah, him and Courtney Walsh, obviously. Jay Grover says, cut speed and cocaine. Presumably that is Crank. Is that Crank, Jay?
Yeah.
I feel I should know. Nestler's Statham's films are hilarious.
Yes.
Although
hilarious
I don't
in
think
an unintentional.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boys
I think
done
that is
good.
true. I'm up to date. We're up to date on tweets. Sweet. We're up to date on tweets.
Well, what I think what we should do is we should have a break, us three, and we should get those commentators that have done no work so far this morning to come on and replace us and
Lazy
for a while.
bastards. Get them out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them out
So we
there.
need the likes of Knackle, Annie, and Nestlers to get on board, and we should leave the wibbling in their hands. I'm sure they can think of something to wibble about.
Okay.
But
100% sure.
I think that's enough for us for today. We
We're
hope
going to have
to
a
see you
discussion
later.
about. We're going to have a discussion about Jason Statham's marvelous movie career.
What a intellectual discussion that will be.
Yes.
The
Well, he was
artistic
in
merits of Jason
Lock,
Statham.
Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
That was a good film.
True enough.
Was he in
I used
that?
to drink.
Yeah.
I used to drink
Yeah.
in the bar that was filmed in. It's in.
Mayfair.
Hoxton.
Yeah, it's in. No, it's in. No. It's in Smithfield.
What did you drink, Tony?
Oh God, just about anything in those days.
Good lad. That's what I like to hear. Right, Knackle's
John
going to come
Adam
in for
Street.
me.
It's in John Adam Street. That's where it is.
Knackle's going to come in for me. Hendo's going to disappear. Tony's going to disappear. You're going to
I
see Nestle Boy and Annie. And I'm going to stay
Have
here
fun.
for 5 minutes because Knackle's doing stuff next door. Morning, Nestlers.
Morning, mate. This is all very.
It's all
I don't know.
It's all very English weather.
Just going back to the ball thing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, tradition dictates, for whatever reason, when cricket was invented or whatever, that they made the ball out of red leather or whatever. But, and I know Hendo poo-pooed it, sort of, they've looked into different colour balls. But surely, something like the yellow luminous sort of tennis ball type thing should be investigated, because if you've got a worldwide professional sport that's can't happen because it's a bit cloudy, it seems ridiculous.
I know. I mean, it is very anachronistic. Is that one? Of
I like that
cricket?
word.
Yeah,
the way you say it.
anachronistic.
Yeah.
I mean, for years and years in tennis, they played with a white ball, and it was only the TV companies who kept complaining at Wimbledon because it got dirty, that it wasn't very easy to watch it on the TV screens, that they changed it. And all the kernels and the everything at tennis goes, and now no one bats an eyelid.
No, they've had problems with cricket balls though. I don't understand why, but the process of dyeing leather and making it into a cricket ball, depending on the colour, seems to react completely differently. I mean,
It's madness,
originally
isn't
when
it?
I think when they started ODI pajama cricket, they used a white Duke's ball, but apparently it used to go all over the place and do all sorts and lasted forever, and that's why they ended. Then they went to the Kookaburra because obviously the ODI game was supposed to be entertainment, so they wanted more runs. And the problem was that the Duke's ball was so good that all the wickets fell and no one got any runs. It's difficult to bat. So they
Well, the
changed
pink
this.
ball doesn't last very long, does it? I mean,
I know what a pink ball. Did they? I can't remember. Did they change it after 60 overs in a test, or am I just making that up in my head?
I mean, look. We got Elon Musk, right? Whose rockets land back on Earth. Okay. You're telling me we can't make a yellow cricket ball?
yeah.
It just seems nuts. It's just the colour.
Well, yeah. Well, no, they try. Yeah, but it's. I guess.
Use the same colour. I mean, the red isn't natural, is it? They must
Yeah, but-
dye it red.
Yeah, true. I guess it's how you pick. I think they've tested lots of different colours, and it's how you pick it up against the
There are-
background and all this kind of shit.
There aren't red animals out there that they create cricket balls out of, are there? I mean,
No.
it to me it just seems
They just let
almost
the,
like there's
no.
not enough effort put into
They just
it.
let the blood seep into the leather, and then they just
Well,
make
like
it
we
cricket
said earlier, Nessa, we should take over the world, really, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
We could do this. We could make a yellow cricket ball work.
It just, I mean, it's obviously, I don't know if it was talked about, but you've got the problem of the batters getting hit because they can't see the ball properly, and in these times, you can't have people getting seriously hurt because they can't see. And I understand that totally. It just seems to me that people who are friends of mine who aren't cricket fans who go, what the hell's going on? It's just, it looks perfectly fine out there.
Colour blindness.
I mean,
Colour blindness is green-yellow, isn't it? Is it green-yellow?
Green-red.
Green-red.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of the batsmen are seeing a yellow ball anyway.
Yeah.
Or green.
I know there was one colour they tried and they couldn't use it because colourblind batsmen couldn't see it.
Right. I don't know. It's just one of those things that like a lot of sports that you follow. Like, you know, I mean, some of the rules in golf and stuff, and Formula One with its rules always shooting itself in the foot, where you just think, oh, Christ's sake. And this is one of those instances with cricket where you think, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's just tradition, though. I do think they struggle to make.
I just wonder how much effort
how
much effort has been put into it. I don't know.
I think an awful lot of effort has been put into finding different coloured cricket balls.
It just seems crazy that it's just a colour.
Yeah,
you know?
but it's how it's. I presume there's different processes of making different colours of leather. It's not as simple as just dyeing it, because it's just animal skin, so you've got to get it through the skin. So maybe you have to use different chemicals for different colours, and it affects the leather in different ways.
I think it's upsetting you then, Nestle, isn't it?
Well, no. What's upsetting me is there's no cricket.
Yes. Well, it is raining, and you certainly can't play cricket in the rain. As much as we would love to, bowling with a wet ball is just fucking awful. You can't spin a ball when it's wet. It's just like a bar of soap. I don't think it's so much the danger in the outfield about slipping over if you had long enough spikes.
I thought it wasn't rain due today. I thought it was going to be all right.
Yeah, it was going to be all right. I was just making a cup of tea. Well, Knackle's going to come in and take over from me, so you can direct these questions back at him. You know what Knackle's like; he's the font of all knowledge, so he'll probably have some good answers.
Yeah, he'll know about cricket balls, Nestle. Anyway, we're going to talk about the snooker, weren't we? You've muted.
Yeah, what an amazing evening that was in Sheffield.
Incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, but and I mean, I don't know if anyone. I mean, the Bayern Munich Barcelona match.
Oh, I know. 8-2.
I mean, that's the end. That's the end of that.
What's happened to Barcelona?
That's the end of that particular lineup. I think there's.
Nestlers, you're incredibly quiet, mate.
Am I? How's
Your mic appears to have disappeared. Hello, Nestlers. Hello, Annie.
Hello, Knackle. You've been a figure in the green room.
You are both incredibly quiet. I'm not really sure what is going on. It might be my headphones, to be honest.
One,
listeners,
two,
let
one,
us know
two, one, two,
if that is the case. But you're not missing any cricket. The start has been delayed officially due to a little bit of drizzle. Apparently, the lightest imaginable drizzle, and the light is worse than it was yesterday, was what George DeBell said a little while ago. So we're not. So we don't know if we're going to get a resumption anytime soon. Obviously, we will keep you updated as much as possible. Pakistan finished yesterday 223 for 9. I mean, I do want to talk a bit about the kind of how yesterday went. The cricket we have got in this Test match has been really interesting.
Is my microphone better now?
Annie, can you hear Nestlers?
Maybe we'll see whether listeners can hear me and.
Hold on 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Talk about yourselves. We'll go back to the snooker.
Millions of our listeners out there, can you hear my microphone okay? Let us know.
You are quite quiet. What about me? Am I quiet to you?
No, not really. But I mean, I've got my volume up on my headphones, so I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Muttley says things you'll never hear on TMS. Well, there aren't any red animals, so you can make cricket balls out of, are there? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, night vision goggles, says Leo.
So we're seeing the entire thing as green.
And Muttley, showing his age and showing my age, I never knew tennis balls were anything other than green. Yeah, they used to be white, Muttley.
They used to be tiny, right? You didn't have all the fuzz on them.
They were different,
like ping pong balls?
No.
More like a squash ball.
They weren't tiny. They were. They. I mean, God, you're going way back now. But no, you could not. The only tennis balls you could get back in when I started playing were white ones. Some people turned up with orange ones one day, and the whole sort of club stopped playing and sort of peered into this box, just like there was some sort of object from Mars or something. But no, all the professionals used white tennis balls, and it was TV who asked if they could.
I think
change
something
it.
similar happened in hockey. I think they changed the size and perhaps the colour of the puck because you just couldn't see the ice hockey puck on TV. By the way, the issue wasn't mine with my headphones, and it's all sorted now, so we're all good.
So it was
good.
your headphones then?
Yep. Simplest problem. Always start with the simple problem.
Yeah, turn it off.
Anyway,
you all sound
talking
great,
about
apparently.
snooker, and then you came along and you started wanting to talk about cricket.
Yeah, controversially. Yeah, I think it's. We saw, what was it, 46 overs on the first day, 40 on the second day, and what we have seen has, as Test cricket has tended to be, particularly in England, but all over the world for the last few years, really interesting. Pakistan did quite well on the first morning, given how much the ball was moving and given the loss of the early wicket. Then England come roaring back again. Then there's a little bit of a recovery. Then England were absolutely brilliant in the first hour after lunch yesterday. I thought Broad was unplayable through most of that session. And the ball he got Babar Azam with, I almost don't think it's been talked about enough. It's one of the, it's the perfect delivery.
Yeah, I kept replaying it, having a look at it. It's just like, what do you do with that?
But it's a classic. Again, this Test match is the classic thing where you kind of, what's been happening with Test cricket, I think, over the last maybe 10 years or whatever, is that the arc of the game, England are on top here, they're going to get them all out for under 200. Oh, hang on a minute. Suddenly, Pakistan dig in. I mean, I didn't think Pakistan were going to get to 220. I thought England were going to skittle them all out for under 200.
They nearly doubled their score from the loss of the fifth wicket.
Yeah, it's a bit like that game, unfortunately, isn't it? Where you're kind of going along one thing and then suddenly something else happens. And
I have no idea what that game is. Is that a professional game that I've missed out on?
Is this a really... You're listening to badly described board games on Guerrilla Cricket. Are you badly describing Snakes and Ladders?
It's not. No. It's a word game where you're playing something and you're saying, fortunately this happened, and then unfortunately this bad thing happened. I can't really describe it, but obviously you two don't play that.
Must be a drama thing.
Snakes and Ladders, Knuckle, is a good description actually of what Test cricket's like. You're going along, you think, oh shit, and that's what this Test match has been, I think.
But what you do have is that what we're seeing in the last maybe year and a half, maybe 2 years, so since the start of 2018, let's say, because it's kind of cleaner from a stats point of view, is that we've seen almost every team in the world has a few good seam bowlers or fast bowlers. In some cases, too many to fit into an 11. If you look at India, Australia, and England, and New Zealand to an extent as well, South Africa when everybody's fit. And the pitches have got more helpful. They're a lot less flat than they were 10, 15 years ago, kind of in the mid-2000s. There are so many more competing demands on batters. It's much harder now to be... the job of being a Test batter is harder now than it used to be, particularly as an opener in England. You look at the numbers. And all of that has combined to make Test cricket really interesting. The value of a given score, of a given... great innings is so much higher than it used to be.
It's funny, isn't it, that if you look at the stats, I'm saying if you look at the stats, I don't know, but in the one-day game, the shorter forms of the games, the innings scores have gone up, yet in Tests they've come down. So you expect, people say, 300 would be good on this pitch all the time.
Yeah, for
sure. The other thing
I
think that's really different in the last few Test matches, the last couple of years, is that we've always expected the first innings to be the scoring innings, and it tends to happen that England certainly have scored more in their second innings.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll be different around the world. I think that if we get enough play today, this could be one of those Test matches where there really isn't very much of a difference between the first, second, third, and fourth innings scores, particularly because you'd expect on a fourth innings. Batting in the fourth innings, you'd expect the pitch to have deteriorated. You'd expect there to be a bit more uneven bounce. We could get to the fifth day and have barely had 3 days of actual play, so that won't happen so much. But then again, as Hendo was saying earlier, the ball keeps moving off the air and in the air and off the pitch for the seam bowlers consistently, and so there's never a time as a batter really, maybe just with the old ball if it's not reverse swinging, that you think, right, now I'm on top, and it relies. You have to bat very well. You have to have either be a great batter, like Virat Kohli and Steve Smith and Kane Williamson and Babar Azam is climbing to that level, and Ben Stokes as well. Yeah, exactly. Or you have to play superlatively well and be incredibly disciplined, like Shan Masood was in the first innings, or like Marnus Labuschagne was a couple of times last year.
So do you think we're losing the element of seeing off the opening bowlers?
No, I think that, if anything, is more valuable now than it has been, because partly because it's harder. But the value of doing so is so much harder. I can think of only... I was trying to think about this. How many consistently good attacking openers are there now compared to what there were in the mid-2000s? You can think of Warner, and maybe for India, Rohit Sharma, and he's quite new to opening. Every other team in Test cricket looks for openers who, as you say, play for their off stump and can survive and don't score particularly quickly. And that's just a tactical requirement that's been forced on Test teams by the domination of the ball. And so you get these trends that emerge in Test cricket that sort of sneak up on you before you're noticing it. It's just another way that
about the ball. What about bats? Do you think that's made a difference as well?
I mean, bats are better. There's no doubt about that, and probably batters are fitter now than they probably were. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly made a difference to one-day cricket, but that's also because players are training to hit boundaries, which didn't used to be the case, both in terms of their gym work and in terms of their skills work. You didn't get players practicing hitting sixes.
On the regulations on the bats. From what I understand now, the professional bats are a lot bigger, a lot thicker than they used to be. They're not?
Not really.
There must be certain regulations where you
can't... There are regulations.
There are, yeah. There's regulations on the depth and the width, but there has been a cap put in on the depth, but it's to what the top level is now, rather than bringing it down. So... you might get deeper edges on some. You certainly get deeper edges on some bats than you used to, and that's just a bit of a trend. But it's more that making technology has improved, just dramatically.
The one time I actually got my hands on a Marcus Trescothic bat, it was one that he's had to not play with anymore because the edge was too deep, too thick.
Oh, really? He had to bring it down. I think David Warner is the only other player who that's had to happen to, but that's at the real extreme end. And you've always had players with really extreme bats. Like Clive Lloyd used to bat with basically a tree. There's always been a bit of a personal variation. Some players like a lighter bat, some players like a heavier bat. But in terms of the bat making technology, you can get more bat, as it were, into the same size and the same weight of bat.
You're not allowed to have any other materials in the bat.
No, that's
not allowed metal bats.
No, but that's been tried. There was a bat, Dennis Lilly famously. But then I think people have sort of experimented with bat manufacturers. Have experimented with putting like little strips of carbon fiber or something in the bat. I might be wrong on the exact material, probably am, but to add spring. But those got outlawed sort of as soon as they came in.
You don't really need it, do you? You know.
No, it's just a thing that if you're a bat maker, you're going to try things, and if you're a player, you might want to try it out. These things come and go. Like there used to be the thing in the Peterson and Flintoff had the woodworm bats with the little bits cut out of the sides, or you had scoops taken out of the bat to Gray Nichols famously the scoop, which was a big deal in the 80s to aid sort of the aerodynamic properties of the bat. Or you had the mongoose with the really long handle, which made it easier to hit sixes, but basically you couldn't play off the back foot with it. So it kind of
I was going to say the mongoose. We've got one of those in my club cricket, and no one really plays.
No, they're good for drills and they're good for a bit of fun. But players did use some. Matthew Hayden, I remember using one in the first or second season of the IPL, and he went away from it because it was quite limiting in terms of what you could do with it. But I don't think in terms of Test cricket, I don't think the bats are a significant factor. I mean, certainly, to be honest, I mean, you would expect scoring rates to have continued getting faster. if that were the case, and there has been a plateau and possibly even a slight decline in the last little bit of time after kind of a few decades of it consistently going up, and there's all sorts of factors involved. Why don't we see what our friends out there in the social media verse have to say about all of this and much more?
Well, let's have a look, shall we? Chris Tomo Pollitt says we all sound great.
Thank you.
I think that's down to the audio, not really us. Muttley says, speaking of age, are you sure you guys aren't confusing it with golf? I think the size of the ball. J. Michael Hammond says, I don't think hockey changed the puck. I think what you might be remembering is there was a few seasons where television experimented with highlighting the puck in purple or red with a streak behind it on especially hard shots. Real fans hated it.
Oh, right. Well, I guess. It's always tricky for sports. Attracting a new audience compared to not pissing off your existing one.
The age-old debate.
Yep.
Muttley also says, I remember carbon fibre stickers, decals and stickers on bats. Oh, interesting. And quite rightly, Mohan says, happy birthday to the great Jack Russell.
It is indeed Robert Charles Russell's birthday, as I try and commentate into my coffee cup. If it's good enough for Athers, it's good enough for me. Yes, indeed, it is Jack Russell's birthday today. Fine glove man that he was, and now fine watercolour artist. So I think you've had some dealings with, Annie, in your...
I have, yes. Yes, he's done the 2 covers on my magazine. Lovely man who's been very, very generous with all the rights and everything. He's just been fantastic. And also I have one of his Ashes pictures, his new pictures are out, and it's all
right, you can buy those as prints. Those will be from the
I bought one, and I bought the women's Ashes at Taunton one.
Ah, very good. So those will be from last year then, the 2019 Ashes.
Yeah. But he's just brought them out.
Famously, so shall we say eccentric, which I guess is what you get to be when you're slightly odd and quite rich.
Yes.
Famously doesn't let anyone know where he lives, and when he picks someone up from the station, he blindfolds them.
Yes. I've had sort of dealings with him, but I've had to send everything to his office.
You haven't been tied up and blindfolded by
I haven't
Jack
been
Russell?
tied up and blindfolded yet. No, that's for later.
Also, my favourite thing about the fact his name isn't Jack. His name is Robert Charles, and someone thought dog, right? Yes.
Jack Russell. On YouTube, Dandy Castro's been typing away furiously, talking about light, and also talking about where is it? Talking about a chess match.
I think there's a big chess final going on at the moment.
Yeah, Carlsen versus Nakamura. That sounds like the World Staring Championships. But yeah, so I think Andrew Wright from Dakar, he's with us. Bloody rain, bad light, blah blah blah. I think we've read out quite a lot of the people who are following us on Quick Tracker, but I'll just the ones I can see. Muhammad Wali, 270.
That would be a very good score from this position.
Yeah. Solomon Salman is with us. Zahu Arava and Mansur Khan. Pitch report. Well, Mansur,
no idea,
can't give
mate.
you a pitch report because it's drizzling.
Yeah, the pitch has been undercovers. Apparently, this is going to be one of those annoying things. If it started drizzling while they were playing, they might have been able to stay on, but you can't start while it's raining.
Another strange...
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Annie, Jay Grover wants to know where he can buy your magazine.
Does he?
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the magazine, actually.
I'll send you a text, or no, not a text. I'll send you a message.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can put something out on Twitter. Speaking of things that we're plugging, at tea today, Tony Bishop is talking to friend of the show, Katie Cooper, who is who works in public health policy and is a trustee of the Sussex Cricket Foundation, about her and their work with 2 fantastic initiatives, Tea for Two and In the Bag, which are aimed at alleviating food poverty and holiday hunger among kids, stepping in to fill where government should be but aren't. So Tea for Two is an initiative funded by the Sussex Cricket Foundation, and I think also by Nottinghamshire Cricket, Nottinghamshire's equivalent, to have the clubs partner up with local food banks, all of the clubs across Sussex. And In the Bag is delivering healthy meals and recipe cards to 220 families a week across Sussex in partnership with the Brighton and Hove Food Partnership.
That's fantastic. Who's talking to her?
Tony will be talking to Katie Cooper, who is a long-term friend of the show.
Yeah, she's been with us for a long time, hasn't she?
Yeah, I've never met Katie Cooper.
One
of the Katies.
Old school sofa listener, I think, and has been on our election broadcasts as well.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that, I got confused and thought it was he was interviewing Katie Walker.
No. hope you're well, Katie, if you're listening, which you're not.
No.
Jay Grover, I'll send you a link, but this is the magazine and Jack Russell's picture, and it's on my website, so I'll just send you the link to my website.
I assume you'll be having full roundups of the Bob Willis Trophy. I guess there'll have been 2, maybe 3 rounds by the time the next issue comes out.
This is the 3rd round, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes.
Yes. The next issue is coming out in September. I'll be talking about it. I think the cricketer are doing a lot with the counties as well.
Right.
But I was talking about.
So actually, you could end up having a roundup of the full season by the time or maybe not quite the final.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll quite get there.
Yeah.
But I will be looking into it definitely, and it might go up on my website as well.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah. I've quite enjoyed the Bob Willis Trophy, I have to say. I can give you some roundups actually from the.
Yes, please. I know Somerset had 1 wicket.
From the Bob Willis Trophy, yes. At Headingley, Yorkshire are 40 for 2, having been put in by Derbyshire. Warwickshire are 32 for 3, having elected to bat first against Somerset at Edgbaston. Match is delayed due to there'll be a further inspection at some point at Hove between Sussex and Essex. At Northants, Worcestershire are 31 for 2, having been put in by Northants. Nottinghamshire actually have started very well against Lancashire, who put them in at Trent Bridge. Notts are 60 for no loss. And play has been delayed. Match start has been delayed. Play is due to start at 1 something at Canterbury between Middlesex and Kent, who absolutely demolished Sussex, of course, in the last round. Similar story at Arundel, where Hampshire are playing Surrey, the gorgeous Arundel Castle, and match's start has been delayed. There will be no play before lunch at Sophia Gardens between Glamorgan and Gloucestershire, and the final one is at Leicestershire. Durham having been put into bat by Leicestershire are 48 for 2. So of the bowling side, Somerset are doing the best so far. Unfortunately, Cricinfo is having a few problems, so I can't give you the full scorecards.
The way the Bob Willis Trophy set up at the moment, Somerset are top of their division, but their points are less than the other 2 that are on top of it.
Yeah, that's right. So yes, you'll need to.
Couldn't go through at the moment.
Yeah, obviously there's a more.
So I'm not happy about that.
No,
we need batting points.
Indeed, more than half the season to go. So well, just about. I may as well give you the full scorecards actually while we're waiting for anything. So yeah, for Worcestershire, the 2 men out at Northampton, the Central Group. Worcestershire are 31 for 2. The men out, Daryl Mitchell and Jake Libby gone for 7 and 0. Both dismissed by Nathan Buck, who he and CJ White. Let's have a look. Bear with me 1 second. He and Jack White have both started very well with the ball, as has Blessing Muzrabani for Northants. But Worcestershire are 31 for 2 at Edgbaston. Warwickshire as now 35 for 3. The men out. Robert Yates. Caught behind by Stephen Davis off Craig Overton. Will Rhodes, the skipper, run out by Tom Abel, and Sam Hain bowled by Craig Overton. The men in Ian Bell and Bell indeed. Ian Bell and Matthew Lamb. So a couple of wickets for Craig Everton. Both the Over twins playing in this game, along with Lewis Gregory and Josh Davey. So that's a pretty strong seam attack.
Gregory's back in, which is interesting. I wonder how he'll do.
Cool.
2 overs, none for 8 thus far. Nesters.
Yeah, you probably know a bit more about this guy who plays for Essex, the bowler, the South African.
Harmer.
Simon Harmer, superb off spinner.
He's my captain in my fantasy team, and he's got me lots of points.
Yeah, I mean, my friend who's big follow was messaging me. I looked up. Oh, what's the story? Why isn't he playing for South Africa?
Well, because the way the Kolpak regulations work, in order to qualify, or did, and certainly there'll be obviously being phased out at the end of this year with the way that regulation works is that, according to the ECB, you have to give up your right to play international cricket in order to qualify as a local player, in order to not be signed as an overseas player.
No,
so
I'm sorry. I know that. I just meant, why did he give that up? What happened with him in the South African?
So he played a few Test matches on a tour of India, but Keshav Maharaj came into the team and started doing very well. And it's been a long time since Simon Harmer has played Test cricket, so I mean, obviously he's improved significantly since. I honestly don't know where he is compared to Maharaj as a Test spinner. And Harmer found himself...
He wasn't getting the games, basically.
No, yeah, Harmer found himself out of the team a little bit. He was out bowled by Maharaj on that tour of India, and then found himself out of the team. And then a combination of that and the fact that pretty much every county can offer more than certainly any first class, and even some Proteas, actual international players get paid in South Africa. So it's a combination of, particularly with the rand against the pound, so it's a combination of opportunity and just simple finances.
The bit I read was just about him saying that like he's the best in the world at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. He
certainly is doing well at Chelmsford.
He said those things that kind of thing a couple of times. I think in terms of being the best off spinner in the world, Nathan Lyon and Ravi Ashwin might have something to say about that. But he has said that he might want to play for South Africa again, because he'll be, when the PAK regulations are phased out with England, with Britain leaving the European Union, then his contract is going to be converted to being an overseas player, which will mean that he'll be eligible to play for South Africa again.
But there's talk about trying to get him in the England side as well.
That's not going to happen. He said he took some advice from the ECB and then said, no, with the government regulations as they are, we can't do that. And so a combination of that and the fact that his contract's going to be converted to being an overseas player means that isn't going to happen. I know Tony and I and David were talking about this on the first day, and David and Tony were very strident, obviously, because Simon Harman's very good and England are trying to find a first choice spinner to have been.
He is very good. I mean, but he is especially good at Chelmsford, which is I know that's a fairly normal thing. You'd be good at home, but he is especially good at Chelmsford.
Sure, I mean, he doesn't travel well now.
No, he does, but his figures. That Essex's, all of Essex's figures with the ball at Chelmsford are particularly good. They just know how to bowl in those particular conditions.
He was good when he came to Somerset.
Well, quite, yeah. Well, yeah. He and Jamie Porter have been a huge part, and Sam Cook have been a huge part of why Essex have been a dominant force in county cricket in the last couple of years.
Well, and similar with Abbott at Hampshire.
Well, quite, yeah. Yeah, indeed. I mean, they had for a very brief period, they had Kyle Abbott, Dale Steyn, and Fiddle Edwards in the same attack.
Yes.
And we're going to have Nathan Lyon this year, but obviously that isn't happening. But yeah, Kyle Abbott is still at Hampshire. Dwan Olafir as well at Yorkshire, who I think also his contract is going to be converted to being an overseas player.
Edwards, when I first saw him playing at Somerset, was possibly the fastest bowler I've seen.
Yeah, because of his action, it just makes him look even faster than he is.
Yeah.
But he's unfortunately back in the West Indies at the moment. He's not going to be able to play this season. It's unlikely at his age that he's going to get an overseas contract. I will go through the rest of the county scores, by the way. Up in the North Group, we've got 3 games that have been managed to get underway. At Leicester, so Durham were put into bat by Leicestershire and are 58-4-2. The men out Sam Dixon and Cameron Steele, wickets for Dieter Klein and George Griffiths, respectively. The men currently in. Alex Lees, the former Yorkshire bat, is on 21 not out, and David Beddingham, the another man of South African extraction, is 28 not out. At Nottinghamshire, Notts have started very well, which is not the case for most of the last several years. I like scorecards like this. A scorecard of 2 halves. Billy Slater is 50 not out of 63 balls. Hasib Hamid is 17 not out of 47 balls. Hasib Hamid.
I'm pleased to see Hamid getting some runs.
Yes, absolutely. Playing course against his former team, who dispensed with his services. Yeah, Hasib Hamid looking to make the long road back to prominence in international cricket. I think with Hamid, leave him to sort out his game in county cricket for a couple of seasons, maybe take him on an A tour at the end of next year, and there's plenty of time. And the only other game that's had any play today, it looks like the entire South group has not been able to start on time, which would fit with the weather we're seeing here in London and in Southampton.
It's grim here too.
Yeah, and down in Exeter indeed. At Yorkshire, who have started the Bob Willis Trophy pretty well, 43 for 2 in the 18th over, having been put into bat by Derbyshire. The men out. Tom Kohler-Cadmore for a duck, bowled, was caught by Matt Critchley off the bowling of Ben Aitchison. And Johnny Bairstow gone for 22, caught behind off Anuj Dal. The men in, Adam Lythe on 20 not out, and Dawid Malan on 2 not out. So those are the scores in the Bob Willis Trophy. I think we were due to have a change of Wivel. I'm not sure if Annie's staying on. Tony is meant to be coming back in, but while he's waiting, I'll stick around here and we'll bring Anindya Datta, best-selling author and prolific in doing so, back into the conversation. Welcome back in India, and unfortunately we're not watching cricket.
Thank you so much, Nakul. Yeah, I know we're not watching cricket, which means we'll get time to have some more conversation and some more county scoreboards from you, I guess. Yeah,
unfortunately those are the only county scoreboards that I can bring you because of rain. Your background in the flag is because on your Zoom background is of course because it is now 73 years since India gained independence from the British Empire on the 15th of August 1947. We wished our Pakistan friends and family and friends and followers and listeners a happy Independence Day yesterday, and we'll do so again for India today.
Thank you very much.
Why aren't you out partying?
Because this is Singapore and we've got social distancing at the moment.
You should be partying in your house.
I am. I'm partying with you guys here.
Yeah. What more would you want?
By the way, update from the boy in the bubble, George DeBell. The weather conditions have not changed. Covers are on lightest of drizzles, and the light is not very good either. So the news is that there is no new news.
That's really grim.
Yes, this could be a very frustrating day.
It's like a Cornwall mizzle that just doesn't leave and doesn't go anywhere.
Said yesterday that it's like waiting for Godot, except we're on radio, so we can't leave silencers.
And found.
So where's Tony then?
Good question. I mean, he may have decided that he's done enough wibbling for the day.
But he was very excited to be on with India.
I'll give him a text.
Yeah.
He's probably had enough of me over the last few days.
Do you think?
Yeah.
So what time is it in Singapore at the moment then?
It's about 7:30 p.m.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you
just
definitely
about.
should be partying. Definitely.
I know you've talked about your book your new book in depth with Hendo, so we won't do too much of it. But I'm slightly fascinated by those 1971 tours, and particularly the in India. In the England tour is very much about the spin quartet, and particularly Bhagwat Chandrasekhar. But that 71 tour saw the birth of a legend. That was the first series that Sunil Gavaskar came into the Indian side.
Yeah, that's correct. He came in as a 21-year-old, made his debut in the West Indies, and which is not the easiest place in the world to make your debut. Scored 774 runs in the 4 of the 5 tests that he played, which I believe to this day remains a record for a debutant in an overseas series. Which
like fast bowling then, obviously.
Well, this was before the West Indies really had the full pace battery in operations. It's before the real. It's a few years before the real greats came through, but it's still a decent attack. Let me just find the scorecard of that debut test. But this would have been the tail end of Gary Sobers' career. Rohan Kanhai would have still have been in the in the West Indies team, and indeed so enamoured was Sunil Gavaskar of Rohan Kanhai that he named his son after the great West Indian Rohan Gavaskar, who played a few games for India in various formats.
That's correct. Actually, Gary Sobers, it wasn't the end of his career. In fact, he had probably the best batting average of the West Indians in that entire series. He scored some amazing centuries, big centuries, and he and Davis, I think it was Charlie Davis, who were the big scorers, and Rohan Kanhai. So their batting was very strong. The bowling, to your point, was in between. It fell sort of between the cracks. So there was Gilchrist and Hall, who had just retired. In fact, West Hall played in one of the matches against India. It wasn't a test match. It was against Barbados. And that was the only tour match India lost. When it wasn't because of Hall, but he just happened to play in that match. And they sort of brought him in to intimidate the Indians because not much else was working. They had Van Holder and Shillingford, who were fast medium at best. I think Gavaskar got lucky in his first series that he didn't up front face either the face quartet, which came later, or Hall and Gilchrist in their prime. But then, I think you have to remember that even then in the first test match, I think they were, I can't remember the score now, but I think they were 4 or 5 wickets down for below 20. And the one who saved them was Dilip Sardesai, brought in there at the age of 36, brought in for his experience by Ajit Wadekar, who was the new captain, and he scored 212 runs. And then he walked out from there and basically walked up to young Gavaskar and told him, "This is club standard bowling, don't worry about it."
Double 100 for Dilip Sardesai in that game, getting India to 387 from a score of 75 for 5. We talked a little bit about Ajit Wadekar because he died during the India's last tour of England in 2018, so we talked about him on the show then, particularly in reference to the 71 tour of England. But I'll just give you the attack from Gavaskar's debut. I mean, Gavaskar would go on to have a very good record against the West Indian quartet. He was one of the very few batters who could hook Andy Roberts with any sort of comfort, which was one of the hardest things to do in cricket during the 70s. But the West Indies attack is Van Holder, Grayson Shillingford, Gary Sobers, Jack Noriega, the spinner, and then you had the batting lineup of you had Roy Fredericks, Steve Camacho, Rohan Kanhai, Clive Lloyd, Charlie Davis, Gary Sobers. So it's in between it's in between the Calypso era and the Lloyd Richards domination. But nevertheless, it was the first. It was India's first Test win in the West Indies, and in fact, Test win against the West Indies, I think, and first series win against the West Indies, home or away.
That's correct. I think India had not beaten West Indies in 23 or 24 Test matches before that. So it was a big deal, and they won at Trinidad. They actually played 2 Test matches at Trinidad. The second Test, by the time they went to play the second Test, I think the groundsman was very near being fired to ensure that the pitch did not help the Indians. It was a fascinating series. I've had. I couldn't. It was a very small. It was commissioned as quite a short book for a specific release, which was about a couple of weeks ago. By the way, a little plug for it's been out for 11 or 12 days now, and it's been at #1 throughout.
Yes, I've seen that. As I think Tony alluded to the other day, topping various autobiographies and memoirs by various past and present greats of the Indian team. How much? Although I do always think I cannot remember who came up with this line first, but someone, when asked about their autobiography, said, "Thank you very much. I look forward to reading it."
That's excellent.
I have speaking of cricket autobiographies, I was given at some point as a kid, like when you're a kid and you first start getting into cricket, everyone just besieges you with cricket books every birthday and every Christmas, and just, I don't know, what do we get in cricket? Something. I got given a copy of one of Sunil Gavaskar's books, and he talks very well about that tour in '71 in particular, and how he sort of, which is, it's interesting for someone who was as thoughtful and was as measured as Gavaskar was. He was quite fearless in those early days. He almost didn't really know what he was getting himself in for, and that seemed to help him in that series.
Completely. I mean, of course, you're 21 years old, right? Gavaskar was making his debut in the West Indies and then his first tour of England. And then you had Gundappa Vishwanath making his debut in England. He made his debut, in West Indies, but again, in England, that was his first series as well. I was reading an interview from Vishwanath a couple of days ago where he was talking about that England tour. And he said it was very, very difficult for him because he had never seen the ball swing and seem like that. So of course, to adjust that took a while, and it was true of all of them. But what I think people who watch cricket today don't realize is that when teams tour England now, they hardly have time to get used to the conditions. So of course, because of the current situation, you had Pakistan there for a long time, and you had West Indies there for a while. But that doesn't mean that they got match practice.
But that's why the county cricket is so popular.
Exactly. During that series, before the first Test match, there were 35 days before the first Test match where they were in England, and they had eight matches against top counties. Before the first
in those days, I mean, it's been quite a while since this was the case, to be fair, but counties would put out their strongest 11s, including their overseas players. I mean, that's probably not been the case consistently since the mid-90s, so it's been a while since that was the case. Although, interesting, I think Crickfist did some analysis recently on the number of overs faced before the first Test by touring teams, and how that compared to how well that batting team did through the series. And actually, there isn't much of a correlation, which is interesting and counterintuitive. You would think that, particularly we talked before you came on about how hard batting in England is now for England as well as touring teams. You would think that bit of extra preparation would mean higher scores, but it doesn't appear to, which is, I find interesting. And maybe that's because counties don't tend to use these tour games now as an excuse to rest players, with the various competing demands. But you look at you talk about in terms of the adjusting to fast and seam bowlers. India's seam attack was a joke in the early 70s. Syed Abid Ali and Eknath Solkar were the opening bowlers, and then it's just basically how few overs of seam can we bowl till we get to the spinners.
Well, I think it was at Old Trafford. You say it was a joke, but I think it was at Old Trafford. I'd have to go back and check the scoreboard. England were 21 for 4, all 4 taken by Abid Ali with the ball swinging. So, I would give a bit more respect to their bowling.
No, that's fair. That was a little harsh, but basically, it's a far cry from the fact that India have too many fast bowlers to fit into a team now comfortably. But yes, it was very much. Syed Abid Ali, Eknath Solkar really troubled Geoffrey Boycott a few times. They're both sort of very accurate, almost county-style seamers.
And they were not fast by any stretch of imagination. In fact, I have a quote in there from Alan Gibson, if I'm not mistaken. One of the friends I spoke to who were keen followers of cricket at that point in time, and heard this on the radio and recollected it for me, where Alan Gibson, as Abid Ali, and I told this to Abid Ali when I was interviewing him, and he had a good laugh about it. He had this line where he said that here comes Abid Ali running in faster than he bowls.
Brilliant. That was Alan Gibson, was it? I love Alan Gibson. He was great.
What we should do, I'm sure we have some people with us on social media and so forth.
I was just going to say I've got a couple of...
Great. I'll let you do that, and I'll jump out and let Tony in to join the two of you.
Oh, he's joining us, is he? Jay Grover says, Sheffield in surprisingly not shite weather. Shock. And Jay Grover says, a ninja always sounds suave as fuck. Can I entrust my life savings to him? At a double return, I might get a fiver by 2031. Can he? I mean, you are a banker, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm more an entrepreneur now, but I was a banker for a very long time. Yeah.
Okay, and you're more an entrepreneur now, are you?
Getting there.
And a writer, obviously. Yes. And Tony's joined us.
I have. Hello.
Hello, Tony.
I must admit, I've been out. I've been, a friend of mine's 60th birthday today, and I dashed out to get him a card. Wasn't sure what time I'd be back on.
Did you get a good card?
Yeah, well, vaguely humorous, you know.
What, something about being old? Or?
Well, something like that. Because he's slightly, well, obviously I'm 60.
Younger than you.
He's, yeah. So it was something along the lines of me not being able to remember my 60th party. Which is true, frankly. Which you didn't make because you were at Lord's.
I was at Lord's, yes.
Yeah,
I know.
I've got a long memory. I haven't forgotten that.
No, I know.
You didn't turn up. Anyway, what have you two been chatting about?
We've been chatting about a ninja's book.
Which one? He's got so many.
I know. It wasn't the Spin. Wizards of Spin.
Wizards.
No,
it's
in 71.
A rich territory indeed. I know what I would like to chat to a ninja about. I don't know if we've covered it before, but it's the Ranji Trophy and how well supported it is, and how the players feel about it. How does India as a country feel about it? Annie and I have long had this idea that what we'd like to do one day is to get people from every different country who watch the kind of local equivalent of county cricket onto one call or podcast or online event, and just chat, have an Aussie chatting about the Sheffield Shield, us whiffling on about county cricket, someone else talking about the Ranji Trophy, someone else talking about it's a shield in the West Indies as well, isn't it? I have a feeling, having met people in Australia and got to know them very well, and had a lovely day watching.
You enjoyed it out at the Sheffield Shield, didn't you?
Absolutely loved it. But I realised, it was like-minded souls who almost have a kind of a sense of, there was a definite affinity between me as a county fan and them as a Shield fan, and I was wondering how India viewed the Ranji Trophy, really, because it doesn't get well supported in terms of numbers, does it?
No, it doesn't, sadly. I think the issue is that the longer version of the game per se doesn't get supported tremendously, unfortunately, like it does in England or in Australia now. And you're probably the only two countries where, barring what's going on right now, where you manage to fill up the stands for Test cricket. I was talking, I think yesterday we were talking about an India-Sri Lanka Test match I had gone to at the Eden Gardens a couple of years ago, and there was hardly anyone there. So, which is very, very unfortunate, because I have grown up going into the Eden Gardens, watching having 100,000 people around me, and I have these memories of what I used to eat as a young kid. Of course, you remember that, right? You've got your
yes, it's always about food.
Right, winter, and you have your boiled eggs, and you have your oranges, and stuff like that, right? With Indian winter is when you get the really nice oranges, etc. So you have those memories, and then here I was in winter, going after many years, going back and watching a Test match there, and there's virtually nobody there. And then.
So what is that? Is it the IPL?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Eden Gardens fills up for IPL. It fills up for, KKR playing whoever they're playing. I don't think it matters, because it's entertainment, and it's family time, and people just, show up there like they would show up for a movie. I mean, that's how I look at people going to the IPL. It's just entertainment, right?
But
so who does go to the Ranji Trophy games then?
So I think it's only die-hard fans who go to the Ranji Trophy, and fortunately, many of the matches are telecast. So if you do want to watch it, you can, especially the latter stages. So I watched the entire final of the Ranji Trophy after actually many years in the previous season. Played at Rajkot between Bengal and Saurashtra, and I found it quite fascinating. But what I also realized is that you see the Indian players who are playing Test cricket, T20 or ODI, and then you think that the bench strength behind is about the same, and that's not always the case. So I think for fast bowling or medium pace to fast bowling, it is the case. There is real bench across the first class matches. For spin bowling, unfortunately, it's not. You don't. There is real good quality spin bowlers in first class cricket today. And I've had many discussions on this with Munde Karthik as well, and Tony, you should watch Karthik's new YouTube channel on spin bowling. It's fascinating, absolutely. I mean, he had Graham Swan in there, he had Vettori, he had Murali, he's had Dilip Doshi, Harbhajan Singh, all of them, and they're talking about and every spinner, whether in England, anywhere in the world, needs to actually watch that, because every one of them picks up the ball and they talk about every intricate detail of spin bowling, body movement, the angles, how you
Warren
hold.
on it.
It's sorry.
Was Warren on it?
Not yet. So the series is still going on.
Oh,
so
okay.
Coming on, but
I should look for that.
it's really good. So I was talking to Karthik the other day, and I was complimenting him on this channel, and he said, my intent is that young spinners really pick up tips from here, because they're never going to get this chance to, because coaches who are there are rarely spin bowlers, and they don't necessarily pass on what's necessary. But also the bigger factor, and which I pointed out to Karthik, was that I hope that's the case, but the spinners who you would want listening to it are probably only interested in going into the IPL. So they're really interested in improving their game, or are they interested in how do I not give enough runs in my 4 overs and look good enough to make X amount of money in the IPL? There's nothing wrong with that, but what that means is that through first class cricket, you're not creating the quality of spinners that India's traditionally had.
It's taking away that whole person, isn't it? You're splitting cricket community into two, and that's the danger, and that's the problem with how we are white ball and red ball now. You lose that.
Absolutely, and I think there's on the one hand, I love the IPL because it's really given a livelihood and the chance to fulfill the dream to hundreds of young players who would never otherwise have made it. And on the other, somewhere you're probably destroying some elements of the game just because that's just become so
I don't
important.
think there's a probably there. I think that's a definite, isn't it? But yeah, there are lots of benefits to the IPL, but it's really sad to see the lack of crowd in Test cricket and obviously in the Ranji Trophy as well.
How do they structure the Ranji Trophy? I mean, clearly now, this is an unusual season for county cricket because we have 3 regional groups. So, but up until just over probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was 1 division for county cricket. Then the concern
I think it was 2000, wasn't it? It changed or something.
Yeah. Then the concern was that it encouraged batsmen, particularly, to play for averages rather than for a result, and therefore the product became a little tired. Then they divisionalised it, introduced promotion and relegation across 4 days, and that sort of put renewed life back into it. Tinkered with some of the rules to try and push towards a result. So the structure of the way we have bonus points in county cricket, of course, 110 overs, encourages you to put runs on the board, take wickets, get the game moving along to try and push towards a result. They restructured as well the number of points for a draw, and I think I quite like what they've done in the Bob Willis Trophy, which is the 120 over first innings limit, because again that allows you enough time to post a decent score, but also ensures you keep the game moving. But what do they do in the Ranji Trophy in terms of rules and regulations to try and make it a more attractive product, whilst also promoting the disciplines that turns Indian cricketers into Indian Test cricketers?
Well, I mean, it's gone through several changes in terms of format. I think that there are something like 38 teams, if I'm not mistaken, at the last count. I might have missed something, but I think that's what it is. And there are 2 tiers to it. So the elite tier and the next tier. I'm trying to remember the new names for that. I think
it's two divisions.
I think the top tier now has 2 groups, and then you play the groups, and then you go on to that, and then you have the 2 divisions in there. It's become quite. I know now. I see something which I didn't know actually, that in the previous season there were 3 tiers, so they've made it even more complicated than before. When I last checked, there were 2. So I was just checking just to make sure that I wasn't talking rubbish, and apparently I am, because they've just made it
So it's now 3 tiers, you say? Divisions 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So there's Elite Group A, Elite Group B, Elite Group C, and then they have teams from there, and then there's a lower tier as well, and 1 team qualifies from the lower tier for the quarterfinals. So it's just
okay. Is there promotion and relegation?
Yeah, it's a bit of a promotion relegation kind of system.
Okay.
It's a tough one, because you play a lot of cricket, and you play at the quality of the grounds is better. The quality of facilities at the grounds is not necessarily great. Even for some international centers which have a few matches. So it's not an easy life, but the money's become a bit better. So people are, I think the BCCI has done a good job with that in terms of distribution of money into the lower, into the domestic.
How much is it to go and see it in comparison to the IPL or something?
I haven't been for years. I'm going to check and come back to you on that, Annie.
Yeah, I'd like to hear.
Bought a ticket to a Ranji Trophy match in years.
Well, other teams, you're bad too.
Well, he's been living in Singapore.
Living in Singapore doesn't help.
During the Ranji Trophy season, I haven't been back much in India. So
what about? I forgot what I was going to say. Hang on. What about the way it's structured in terms of geography? So are they mainly regional teams? Would it be my local team, or are they more franchised based, the teams?
It's state based, so they're states, territories. So that's how it's based. It's not. So the Dilip Trophy is the one where the zonal. It's more a zonal championship. So that's the difference.
And played across 4 days.
It is. Yes.
4 days. Okay. So, yeah, Nak was giving us some information. Top 5 teams across groups A and B. The top 2 teams in C and the top team in the plate group go through to the quarters.
Right.
The bottom 2 teams across groups A and B go down to Group C, and the top 2 teams from Group C go up. So yes, promotion and relegation. 1 to A, 1 to B. And the top team in the plate group replaces the bottom team in Group C. Well, that's clear and simple, isn't it?
It's really interesting. What I've found at the moment, there's lots of discussions about the Bob Willis Trophy, coming on and being the new championship way of doing the championship. And I've had lots of people sort of coming back to me saying, "Oh, I want it in this way. I want 3 divisions. I want so and so." It's obvious that there's no simple way of doing the championship, because it's never right, whatever you do, by the sound of it.
No, I mean, I know, and this is why I was so interested to chat about how the BCCI feels and how it treats the Ranji Trophy. I mean, you know, it's interesting to me that the likes of Virat Kohli clearly say they still believe strongly that Test cricket is the pinnacle of the game that they want to play in and be judged by. They're not in any way saying, you know, yeah, this IPL stuff comes and goes. Of course they're not. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. But from the discipline of the game, that is what they still say. So, you know, and it's really interesting to hear an Indo say that, you know, as the man who's written the book of you know, the history of Indian spin, that spin seems to be most suffering in terms of the Ranji Trophy's ability to produce great spinners. Slightly reflected, perhaps. Well, I mean, you have the likes of Yuzvendra Chahal, of course.
Yes, but
more playing white ball cricket than which is, but still with enough tricks in his bag to, you know, make a red ball talk. I'm absolutely sure. So are there, you know, but where then is the next Ravi Ashwin going to come from, for example? How is that talent going to be nurtured to make a difference on the Test stage?
I think there are a few spinners there who are coming up, but they are coming up through the white ball route into prominence, right? Now, I think it's up to the National Cricket Academy, which is based in Bangalore, and the BCCI to enable them to take on the tricks of the trade that they need for the red ball game. It's interesting what you say about Chahal. Now, the thing about Chahal is that I really like him, and I agree with you. You know, he's a FIDE-rated chess player. He's represented India in chess, so he's smart. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and it reflects in his bowling. He desperately wants to play Test cricket. I think, Tony, you and I have spoken about this before, where I've told you he occasionally will tweet to Virat Kohli, gently suggesting that perhaps he should be a part of the Test team. So
one way of doing it. Surely the best way of doing it is to keep taking wickets that you can't ignore him.
Yes, but
absolutely. Can I just break it, because I've got a Twitter thing from Jay Grover saying.
Tweet, is that the word you were looking for?
Tweet, that's the
Twitter
one.
thing.
Twitter thing.
Okay.
I don't know much about tweeting. And Indo, I'm afraid I haven't enough back sheet to make your investment advice worthwhile, but I've just ordered Wizards. It's the best I can do until my known porn business explodes for the insurance money.
Oh, is that still the old tentacle porn stuff still?
Very much. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, well, so another idea Annie and I have had is we've, funny enough, between us, we seem to have talked to a number of authors who are always wonderful company. We were thinking we might get you, one or two others, onto a show, because partly the creative process of researching and writing a book, and still making sure you have enough of your own personality within it, is itself a really interesting topic of discussion. And so, whether by accident or design, I'm not quite sure how we got there, but we seem to have got something of a book club going on.
We have. We definitely have a cricket
on Guerrilla Cricket. Yeah. So, but we've always talked to our authors individually. I think it might be quite fun one day to turn it into a forum. So
definitely.
Look out for an invite to that.
It'll be a blast. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a
one
couple
other
of people we
tweet.
want to
I've
invite.
got Leah saying, I love the Ranji Trophy, even though I mostly follow it through scorecards and highlights, living in Germany and all that.
Well, there you see. So there you have. I mean, I think Leah is a fan of all forms of the game.
Uber fan.
Following her tweets. But I think it's interesting. It's odd. I'm even questioning myself now as to why I've not found ways to watch it.
Yeah.
Whereas I do watch county cricket a lot. I deliberately sought out Shield cricket. I'd be quite happy to go and watch the Shield cricket in the West Indies as well.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to watch the Ranji Trophy. If I went to any of these countries, I'd definitely go and see the county equivalent.
I would. Because I think one thing we found, certainly Annie and I, is the numbers may be lower, but the passion is equal to anything else. And also the sense of, what's the word I'm looking for, camaraderie or collegiateness, the reciprocal membership deal that counties have is terrific. So, well, actually, Somerset's a bad example because they normally set the dogs on you as soon as you walk in as a Middlesex
We hate
fan.
anybody who comes.
But generally, you go to play at any ground, and you're welcomed into the members-only bar, and you'll find you'll chat forever.
Yeah.
Which is always
and what I found from doing my magazine is that the amount of people I get in just saying this is really important to feel like we're all in it together and things. It's been amazing how many people I've had contact me privately.
Let me update you with a bit of information from the green room, which of course is knackle. You always know when we say the green room, it's 9 times
Another
out
word
of 10.
for knackle.
If it's get off, someone else is coming on. It's probably the bear. If it's a deeply well argued and well constructed piece to support what we're talking about, it's likely to be knackle. The information is as follows. Chahal hasn't played a first class game since 2018.
This is what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah. But Kuldeep does play first class and obviously some Test cricket.
Yeah, so I'll give you the explanation for that. So Chahal plays for Haryana, where the captain is a leg spinner. So he doesn't get into the red ball team. And it's a big pet peeve with him that since he doesn't play first class cricket, he doesn't get picked in the Test team. And it's the one solution is for him to move states, which it's a personal decision, I guess, for him. It's might be a bit easier sometimes for people. Well, I guess at least foreign players to move counties than. But if you're, I don't know how easy it is if you live in Surrey and you play for Surrey and you have a birth qualification to go somewhere else and play for another county. But
counties aren't at all really. I mean, yes, you grow up through the school system and the club system, and there are pathways. That means you are likely to, if you grow up playing your cricket through the various Surrey leagues and Surrey schools.
Certainly Surrey, Essex, and Somerset.
But equally, there's a reasonably healthy, transfer system that goes on as there is in football, and players can move between counties. So, for example, Dominic Sibley
it's slightly smaller country. As well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dominic Sibley is a great example. Grew up through Surrey. Competition for places there was too strong. Snapped up by Warwickshire and built the platform that is now looks like being a very promising Test career. Dawid Malan from Middlesex. 12 years, I think, with Middlesex. Probably should have moved on after 2016. You may think perhaps he stayed too long, but now for Yorkshire, so there is a healthy trade in players. I mean, I've only just named a couple that came off the top of my head there, but players move across counties to progress their careers, to get the game time they need. And why do they do that? They do that ultimately because they want to play Test cricket. They need game time.
Absolutely.
To be noticed, to get the stats that put them on the selector's radar or keep them on the selector's radar.
Yeah. And which is exactly what Chahal should be doing. So I don't know what his personal reasons are for not moving to another state, but maybe he's just playing so much white ball cricket that he thinks there is not even so much percentage in doing that, while he would like to play Test cricket. So that's possible as well. But eventually, I think if he wants to play Test cricket, he will have to go somewhere where he's able to play red ball cricket, and that is what I think is preventing him from coming in. Other than the fact that India has its own pace quarter today, it's got pitches which are not necessarily tremendously spin friendly. It's there's still Ashwin there. They're trying to choose who to pick between Ashwin and Jadeja for the Test team, which. I mean, if you had someone like Ashwin in another team, you would think he would automatically walk in as the number one spinner, but apparently not, because Test cricket's changed, right? Captains want batsmen, and Ashwin used to be a better bat than he is today, I think, and Jadeja's been batting better, so he sometimes takes that spot. So it's and there's a left-hand, right-hand thing. So those are the two spots in there. So sometimes, if two spinners are taken, then Kuldeep will get in, but Kuldeep doesn't get enough matches as well. So where is Chahal going to come in? Yes. So it's a bit of a it's again like England putting in 7 fast bowlers in the group of 14.
Or it's our wicket-keeper conundrum as well.
Yeah, exactly. you've got no shortage of wicket keepers.
No, we really don't.
Well, some would argue there's a shortage of one in the Test team at the moment, but we probably don't.
Quite a lot.
We
of people
probably don't
that,
want to go there right now. Not with Annie here.
No. I know folks is the best keeper, but anyway, it's 1 o'clock, isn't it?
Yes. Well, that's very true. So, rather subtly there, I've already invited an Indo onto our authors chat. Annie, we just have to get our other guests together, and we'll make sure that happens.
I think
Ashley Gray. I believe Ashley will be interested. I don't want to say put words in his mouth, but I strongly suspect he would be. And I think we'd have a very interesting program there. The art of book writing, when you're basing it on history, and yet there's enough of your own personality into the story, I think is a rich territory to go talk about. I shall ask our producer what our lunchtime plans are. Nakul, can you let us know, it now being lunchtime? Good question. Brilliant. Well, that's what we like. Producer with his finger right on the pulse of what to next.
When I get
sorry, Anindo.
I said whenever I see the roster and I know I'm on before lunch, I just assume that we're just going to be talking through lunch.
it's the producer bet hedging. Who do we need to chat through lunch? We'll put an Endo on. It's the equivalent of being the night watchman, an Endo. We can't risk the other commentators, so we stick you on to see us through lunch. For now. Only for now. Well, good question. That's really not helpful, Nakul. We had a long chat. I'll tell you what we did. We had a long chat this morning, which was really interesting. Working with Total Cricket Analysis, and we had a good look at the stats for England when bowling at the tail. I'm going from memory. I don't have my notes in front of me now, but it was really interesting that over the last 10 years, England actually have the 3rd highest average of bowling at numbers 7 to 11 in Test cricket, whether it's first innings or second innings. I think the average runs conceded was about 71 or 72 in a first innings, and about slightly less than that in the second for England. We also spent a long time thinking, therefore, why would you completely change your approach when you have a established, well-known batsman batting with a tail ender? Because we felt this cost England a lot of runs yesterday, or unnecessary runs. You had Stuart Broad either side of the new ball with 5 fielders on the boundary right from the off, and the obsession was so much with trying to keep the non-established batsman on strike that they forgot to do what they were actually good at, which was pitching the ball up and using the natural conditions to make it to move and take wickets.
They certainly weren't pitching the ball up. Is there an argument for this is where we'd have a really great spinner on?
Okay. Sorry, I was reading my notes. Who's the question to, Annie? I was reading Nakul's notes as well. We've got your chat with Ashley Gray talk for another couple of minutes, please. So we have to talk for another couple of minutes, please. Okay. It's 2 sentences. It says, we've got your chat with Ashley Gray talk for another couple of minutes, please. Well, I thought it was longer than 2 minutes. Why are you telling me that? However, what I should have read was, we've got your chat with Ashley Gray, pause, talk for another couple of minutes, please. There you go. It's all in the intonation.
Okay, and I said, isn't that this is where we should have a really class spinner coming on before the new ball, maybe?
I think that's what Dom Best said as well.
Thank you.
Well, possibly yes. The stats which our friends at Total Cricket Analysis had done got us sort of to, were a very good basis to launch that discussion, and it just seemed daft to me when you've got floodlights, you've got overhead conditions, and you've had a ball that's actually been moving for the full 80 overs. I think Pakistan have done extremely well to survive 86, frankly, with only 9 down. And I think that's a pretty competitive score they've gone.
I think that's a lot down to Baba and how he played.
Well, okay. Now this is also very interesting. This is the other thing we found out was that we had a look at his batting. Completely put away the cover drive. One of his best shots, one of his most fluid shots, one of his most exciting shots. Bit like Virat Kohli had done, realised that English conditions, particularly the more challenging English conditions, which is what we've been seeing at Southampton, put that shot away. The nurdle off the hip is nowhere near as exciting and as attractive to look at, but a bit safer if you're driving, you're always likely to get caught. He's been out 3 times already in this series, going for the drive and being caught as a result. So he's done well, considering he's only ever played one previous test match in this country and got his wrist broken.
It's his time at Somerset, Tony.
It's what? Well,
it's his time at Somerset. He
spent his time in Somerset.
Yeah.
Quite right too. So he, I think, batted it extremely well.
He did.
One of the other things we found out in looking back over this summer was it's the lowest scoring rate overall for 10 years in a Test cricket summer so far, about 3.12 an over, which is the lowest since 20 years, the lowest since 2000.
Isn't it brilliant that the bowlers are being brought back in a bit more then?
Well, it's that, but it's also more disciplined batting. So 3 centuries so far this summer. Sibley, who was painstaking, not painful, painstaking.
Well, it was fairly painful as well, but it was
painful for the opposition. Some have argued painful to watch. I absolutely don't agree with that, by the way. Ben Stokes, his century, still, by the way, the slowest of his 10. And Shan Masood, a gritty, well fought, playing the conditions type innings. So, although we've had the slowest scoring rates for 20 years, we've had 3 centuries, all of which have been the slowest in the century genre, if you want to call it that. The fact is, we've also had phenomenal, close, exciting, by and large, Test cricket.
We really have.
So this series, combination of weather and just the different mentality necessary, particularly from England, and opposition. The West Indies did it in the first test. They suffered a little bit more in the second and third tests, but Pakistan have done it really, really well. Adapted their game, maybe scored less, maybe scored slower, but have dealt with English conditions better, and there has not been a compromise of any kind in entertainment value despite that.
Tony, but why does that surprise you? Because even the last time when Pakistan was in England, I think Pakistan traditionally plays much better in England, and with due respect to the West Indies, I think Pakistan's a better cricket team.
I would agree. Right now, I'd go along with you, Anindya.
Neymar Butlin says it's 5 a.m. in Los Angeles. Just up. Please tell me there's going to be a pitch inspection soon before I need my head.
We'll just have a look for you. When I say we, more likely Knuckle will. But hang on, I can have a look myself. We'll see who gets there first. I'm sure Knuckle has his finger more on the pulse than me. Let's see what the latest news is. Lunch has been taken there. No sign of play. Still rain and drizzle. Is that about it? So I've got to be honest. I'm optimistic. Well, I hope there's some play this afternoon. The signs are not good. The covers are still well and truly on. The cloud is well and truly down.
Yeah, I want the play to start because we're just in a really exciting moment of the game.
Well, yeah, and if you were Joe Root, wouldn't you have been grateful that you didn't have to send Sibley and Rory Burns out for 10 overs against that Pakistan attack in gloomy, low cloud high humidity conditions with the ball hooping around corners. You know, there's a very real possibility, had that happened, and we can talk about the whole light situation, which is huge frustration. And again, we explored that at some length, but you know, England could easily have been about 25 for 5 last night, and had they been, we'd have been berating them, but frankly not necessarily surprised. So I go back to Barbara Razan. You know, tailoring your game for the conditions is a real Test cricketing skill.
What a beautiful batsman he is to watch as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, for once we actually have some clear production direction, which is that's the chat. The chat with my chat with Ashley Gray is ready to go. So
it's very
a reminder, it's about a book, Unforgiven. It's the story of the West Indian rebel cricketers who went to 2 tours of apartheid South Africa. It's a deeply interesting read, because it non-judgmentally looks at the impact on their lives, the impact on the West Indies as a cricketing nation, the different impact it had across different islands, and the nuance of the motivations that were behind it, and indeed the reaction that they got when they were there. So it's a fascinating story. I hope you enjoy having a listen to it, and hopefully we'll very much enjoy it when we can get Indo and Ashley to chat together, and we'll just sit back and listen to the authorial fireworks.
Absolutely.
Honor.
All right, knuckle, off you go.
How are you?
We are doing very well. England possibly not quite so well. Actually, I might ask you in a minute about how, as an Aussie, you